Yo, what's good, everybody? My name is Cosmic, and I want to welcome you to my channel, Opinion Stated, where I give unfiltered, opinionated sports takes. Let's go. Yo, what's good, everybody? My name is Cosmic. I want to welcome you back to my channel, Opinion Stated. Man, I have a phenomenal episode for you today. I was scouring the internet as I normally do. I'm just looking at a bunch of videos on YouTube and, you know what I mean, reading articles, etc. And I came across a podcast interview from the Pivot podcast, an episode where they sat down with Gilbert Arenas maybe about 6 days ago, I believe that it said. And, you know, Gilbert just shared some insights regarding the Bronny James situation and just a few things that he shared I wanted to give my opinion on and then also highlight, you know, for the purpose of this video, as well as to give some information because he spoke about Quincy Olivari as well and the contract situation with Quincy and the Lakers. So I also wanted to clarify some things as I touched on once before in a previous episode, the Exhibit 10 contract, which allows a player to play summer league in the NBA or for an NBA team or to participate in the NBA summer league, and also the two-way contract, which is an agreement between an NBA franchise and a independent contractor, entrepreneur being the player, in order to have them play between G League and NBA. The G League contract notwithstanding, separate contract. So I wanted to dive into a little bit of that and give you the information on that as well. So that is what this episode is going to actually, pertain to today. But before we dive into the content, if you haven't done so already, please do me a huge favor. Like this video. Liking the video obviously helps us cruise along Algorithm Avenue, as I always say, so that this content gets in front of those just like yourself who are actually looking for content on the NBA, education, knowledge, etc. Maybe, you know what I mean, some arguing points and factors to be able to take into arguments and debates if that's your thing. Also subscribe to the channel as well, man. We're on our road to our first 300 subscribers. I believe we're just like a few away from 300. So started this page back in May. It will be a wonderful thing to take this journey of growth with this channel or the furtherance of growth with each and every single one of you. So subscribe to the channel as well. Man, without further ado, I'm diving right into this content. Today's episode will be entitled No Chill Gil Keeps It Real on Bronny. So, as I stated, you know what I mean? Like Gilbert Arenas has some insights that he shared on the Pivot podcast. And since I already, just kind of talked that up, I'm going to dive right into this information, let you guys hear what Gilbert shares. And it's only about, I chopped it up a bit. So it's about 7 minutes long or so. I'm going to try not to jump in. But, you know what I mean? Like if I happen to jump in, just be prepared. But here we go. Let's take a listen to what Gilbert has to say.
We're not realizing we probably would never see this again.
Oh, this is a one-time thing.
We're never going to see somebody at 38, 39 do this. When you start comparing, remember who your player was at this age. On the bench, sitting there, 2-3 minutes, you got to cheer him on like a little kid, like the ball boy at the gym, that 50-year senior, he didn't get no minutes, and you start calling his name, kind of like, his son, right? You start calling the kid name, yeah, get in, and your old player coming in doing one of these, and right?
So you gonna let that slide?
No, I'm just...
You heard he said? Kind of like his son?
Yeah,
Because you got a big issue with that.
You know how they do the son right now, like Bronny at the end of the game. That's how
I was gonna let Gil have it.
That's how your 38 and 39-year-old favorite player used to be. We used to do that for him.
LeBron is so good that his son got an NBA contract off the daddy. Bronny should not be in the NBA. I've told him 100 times that man cannot play with these men, but his daddy is so good that they let him play and waste 2 possessions running that raggedy-ass pick and roll.
Hey.
I have money on the game. Stop running the pick and roll with this boy and put somebody in the game.
Like when you go young like that, like, is he ready to play? No. Will he be ready in two years? That's when we're gonna see. Right? When you're picking 18, 19, 20, you're not picking for today. Right? If there's a LeBron that's gonna come in and a Luka that's gonna come in, okay. You'll see him, but for the most part, you're Jokic. Remember, Jokic came in.
Yeah.
They said when Jokic in, they just putting anybody in the game now. The MVP, 3-time, when he first got in the game, they was like, oh, they just
Second-round
put
pick, those two.
anybody. Yeah. Right? It takes time. Some people are just different. Right? His attributes, at 6'2.5", he's the average point guard size. He's more athletic than damn near all of them besides Ja, De'Aaron Fox maybe. He got the same speed as them. Strength, he's probably stronger than all of them. Right? He's just not aggressive. Right? So 2 years, play in the G League, practice, develop a little bit more, try to be a real point guard. We'll see what you look like at 22.
Gil, if his name was Jeff Rutherford, he would not be in the NBA. He would not be on the roster. He would not have got a guaranteed contract. He would not be going to a G League if his name was not Bronny James.
No. He would be on the G League team because of his age. So you got to factor in that part too. You got to take his attributes and his age, right?
And at USC, he was what, 5'2"
Yeah.
I think I could get 5'2" right now.
You can't.
Zach LaVine, he averaged 7.
Really?
He was a lottery. Yeah. You have the kid from Peyton Watson, averaged 3. So he averaged 3 coming off the bench. The star player didn't get drafted. They came out in the same draft. The star player didn't get drafted, Johnny Jusain, and the guy coming off the bench averaging 3 went to Denver at 18. It's your individual.
It's a measurable attribute draft a lot of times
it's guesswork. I got a 23-year-old today, what he look like. I got a 20-year-old guy.
Yeah.
In 3 years, where is he gonna be? Right? And that's all it is. It's more guesswork. You'd rather take a chance on a younger guy developing into something decent versus an older guy who he's good right now, but what's his ceiling? Right? Like that's what I said, like the name itself got him drafted, of course. He'll be on the G League team. Right? I mean, he's young enough. They're gonna be like, all right, he's athletic, he can run, he plays the game the right way. He would have been on the G League team. But so the guaranteed contract, name. The name, right? Because that G League contract is $41,000, right? That's it. But it's different than when I played. You negotiate your own contract in the second round now. So the first pick in the second round got a guaranteed $6 million. The second and third pick got a guaranteed $11 million.
Dang.
Yeah, I know. So that means they already negotiated those contracts before the draft, right? Bronny's guaranteed 2 years. Partial third, team option fourth. So really, he got a 2-year guarantee. Now, when people say, what about Quincy? And I say, man, if I'm Quincy, I'm grateful he got drafted. The reason is this team had 15 players. Obviously, they wasn't picking me in the draft because I didn't get drafted if I'm Quincy, right? You didn't get drafted, so I didn't play that well to be seen. But what happened is I got on summer league team with him. I showed that I'm decent. I showed I'm good because we didn't hear his name in summer league.
He actually got out there though.
Right? We seen him like, okay, he's cool. Hey, we're gonna bring you to camp, right? And then in the game, we showed out. Mm-hmm. If not everybody's sitting there looking at Bronny, nobody would have seen you. Just like nobody talked about any other pick. So what happens is your name became so in the algorithm, the Lakers was like,
he can go.
They like him, right? Yeah, they like him. What we gonna do? Hey, them 2 G League people we had last year, who are they? Nobody cares? Okay, we're gonna get rid of them and we're gonna sign him. So they signed him to a deal, $1.1 million, to go play in the G League versus getting drafted by the G League and making $41,000. Right? So think about the G League players who's been sitting there with $41,000, leading the league in scoring every year. They sitting here like, see, he getting that playing with Bronny. Damn. So as much as Bronny's being hated, Quincy's being hated too.
Hey man, it's about opportunity.
And that's why I said, man, when the light is on you, man,
show out.
Show out. Like I don't care why. Listen, I don't care why Bronny is here. He's here.
People gonna see me.
Show out. Right, that's my thing. Like I'm a friend to the young fella. Hey man, I can teach you this, because I know as long as if people are paying attention to him and they want to see him succeed, if I'm helping him, he's gonna be grateful for me. Right? So if he get a job, he's gonna be like, man, can you bring? You know how it works. He gets a job. Hey man, bring the dude. He looked out for me. That's how that works. It's about relationships, man.
Right.
So, so first of all, like a couple things that I really want to be conscious to say, right? I listen to a lot of Gilbert's, you know what I mean, or have listened to a lot of clips from his podcast. I've tried to tune into some lives here and there, and you know, I don't really, I don't have the capacity to sit for 3 4 hours, 2 3 hours listening to anybody. You know what I mean, like consistently that way. My content's not even that long, if I can help it. So you know, but I have listened to a lot of his content, and most of the time because of my being a fan of Gilbert Arenas as a person prior to, and a basketball player as well, prior to the you know, the podcasting, you know what I mean, like new media you know, cap that he's put on. I am I want to be clear in saying half the time, and I don't know Gilbert personally, I'm just basing this off of, you know, being a fan of his over the years, being from DC while he's, you know, playing with the Wizards and getting a chance to hear him speak and having a chance to, you know what I mean, listen to him interview and just kind of observing his personality, right? Fun loving guy, all this stuff. So I'm not speaking like I know him personally, but I'm saying I always got kind of annoyed listening to his content because half the time I'm like, he's trolling. And it's annoying that, you know, with a platform so large and the platform of just his voice and his stature as a former player in the league and a really, really, really good basketball player, you know, I just felt like he was doing a disservice to troll so much with a lot of his takes on the GOAT. You know what I mean? Like a lot of his support. But two things can be true at the same time. So mostly you just have to be kind of keenly listening to what Gil is saying, like to get the real. I encourage all of you to go back and watch this Pivot podcast episode if you haven't. I would link it in the description, but for some reason, every time I continue to link things in the description trying to give credit, YouTube is doing this thing where they're flagging me, and it's the strangest thing. I'm just trying to give credit to where I got the content from, and you know what I mean, so where the information is sourced, but neither here nor there. um, I just want to be careful to say again, I respect, you know what I mean, like Gilbert for what he did while he was in the league, and then you know what I mean, like naturally the kind of a person that he is. So I do want to say that, you know what I mean, I've used, you know, or referenced some of his content a few times, you know, but as it pertains to Bronny, I appreciate here in this interview, you know, as he spoke about it, that he's keeping it real, no malice intended. You know what I mean? So this is not a smoke interview for those who are coming along and are used to hearing, you know, the kind of negative takes from those in the independent media space here on YouTube, etc., saying something negative about, yeah, look like Gil's right. He's that's not this episode. But I did want to be careful to point out, you know, what he said about, you know, Quincy, obviously, you know, with respect to Bronny's development and what it's going to take. We are all aware, right, that when you're drafted as late as the 55th pick, nobody's expecting you, or you go undrafted, as in Quincy Olivari. Nobody's really expecting you to come into the league and be a standout. You know, we're not shocked that Dalton Connect is doing what he did because he was taken so high in the draft. Should not have fallen to 17, but the fact that he was taken in the top 20, you know, means that he had to be a pretty solid player, ready to step onto the court and contribute in the NBA, which he is actually doing in a Los Angeles Lakers uniform. If Dalton Connect would sit down to the G League, I will be appalled. You know what I mean, personally. So that angle of Bronny being sent to the G League and understanding that he needs to develop and all those things was never the issue. Nobody's ever had an issue with understanding that it's going to take this kid some time to develop. We are clear on what he did in college, which was nothing, right? Average 5 points a game, barely. You know what I mean? Playing on a subpar USC team, excuse me. And you know what I mean? Like even in the summer league, those numbers carried over to still be the same. You know what I mean? What he did in the preseason still carried over to be the same. What he has done in the NBA, the numbers are lower, obviously, because he's getting less time. And, you know, he's still in this developmental phase, obviously, and he hasn't really had an incredible, an astounding, a decent showing in the G League, with the exception of the 16-point game that he had in his last outing. So, you know, we're clear on that. Nobody's sending Bronny hate or giving Bronny hate because he needs time to develop. I think the thing that most people are standing on, which is I can only speak for myself personally, is that he needs time to develop, which we all understand, and stay in college. He doesn't need to be in the pros right now, right? taking up one of the 15 spots that Gilbert referenced. So Gilbert talks about or mentioned how, man, look, the Lakers only had 15 slots to begin with. And they literally did. They only had one more spot that they could have given out. And they used that one last 15-man roster spot on Bronny James, right? To be on the actual NBA 15-man roster. Bronny does not have a two-way contract, so he's not relegated to go down to the G League. He has an actual NBA contract. So he does not have to play in the G League. He's signed to a guaranteed contract that has nothing to do with G League development. G League development is a desire of the organizations to say, hey, man, let's send them over there, right? But typically how it's designed, that's not the way. So I want to talk a little bit about, just to add some clarity to Quincy Oliveri's situation, as I listened to an interview with him on Laker Nation earlier or back during the summer, as he explained how he came to, sign an Exhibit 10 contract with the Lakers, how that situation played out for him to sign that contract on the second day of the draft, the morning of the second day of the draft, sitting down with his representation, his parents, to, kind of talk about, hey, man, first day of the draft is already passed. Meaning his agent actually picked up the phone, called a couple teams that he had gone in to work out for, saying, hey, yo, like, what are we looking like? What kind of a deal can you offer us? You know what I mean? Like, obviously considering that he wasn't drafted on the first day. And they looked at the morning of the second day, sat down, looked at, the contract offers, and they decided, or rather just to give some clarity and, to give an honest take, before they could reach out to the Lakers as they were reaching out to all the other teams, the Lakers reached out to them. So reached out to his representation and said, hey, look, man, we're still interested in bringing Quincy into the fold. So they looked at all the deals that were presented to them, and then they decided to go with the Laker deal. So it was Quincy's decision. They were already well aware of what was going to happen, day 2 of the draft. They knew that the Lakers only had one pick, and they basically were not going to use that on him. So he agreed to an Exhibit 10 contract the morning of. So let me go into exactly what this Exhibit 10 contract entails. An Exhibit 10 contract is a 1-year minimum salary, non-guaranteed NBA contract that teams use to evaluate players during the summer league. The contract can be converted into a 2-way contract between the NBA and the G League before the regular season begins. Here are some key details on the Exhibit 10 contracts. Purpose of the contract. Teams use Exhibit 10 contracts to evaluate players during the summer league. Salary. The contract is a minimum salary deal. Guarantee. The contract is a non-guarantee, but the team can guarantee it at any time. If the team doesn't guarantee it, it becomes fully guaranteed on January the 10th. Bonus. The contract may include an optional bonus of up to $75,000 if the player spends at least 60 days with the team's G League affiliate after being waived. If the contract is converted to a 2-way contract, the bonus is converted into compensation protection, almost like a guaranteed money conversion. The contract can be converted to a 2-way contract before the regular season begins. The team can have a maximum of 3 2-way contracts. So we did see, last up, roster. A player on an Exhibit 10 contract becomes a standard minimum deal if they are kept on the 15-man roster past the start of the regular season. Number of contracts, a team can have up to 6 NBA Exhibit 10 contracts at a time. So we did see that Quincy, obviously, like I said, in order for him just to be able to put, lace him up and put on a Laker, uniform, he had to sign an Exhibit 10 contract to play through the summer. So that's exactly what he did. He was happy, he was aware, and he knew what the deal was. He performed decent in summer league. Gil made the point that he played in the summer league, and we really didn't hear anything from no, that's not true. We heard his name. So Gil's point that because Bronny's playing, it actually gives people an opportunity to take a look at or put eyeballs on him. That's true, but I believe that even if Bronny wasn't on the team and they had agreed to draft some other player at 55 and still went through the same process of signing Quincy to a Exhibit 10 contract, we still would have gotten a chance to see Quincy do the same exact thing that he did in summer league this summer, maybe even better, because then he wouldn't have been splitting minutes or sharing minutes with Bronny, even though, Bronny's minutes didn't seem to affect the way that this kid performed in the summer league at all. So he did very, very well in summer league, raised the eyebrows of a whole bunch of people saying, whoa, this kid is actually good. Played 5 years in college, so stands to reason that he's a little more seasoned as a basketball player. You know what I mean? Like he's ready. And, they obviously invited him in, to, into camp, and then had him, work or work out with the team, not only work out with the team, but also to participate in the preseason. In the preseason, still same thing. Had a couple games, man, where he just shined. We all remember his tear-filled interview after the Golden State game and all the respect that he was getting from not just Steph Curry. Steph Curry had him in tears in the press conference just by saying, man, yo, little bro, like, man, I'm a fan of your game. And he's like, whoa, this is crazy. I met Steph twice. And you know what I mean? I had him sign my jersey twice, and I used to sleep with that thing on, just hoop dreaming and dreaming about being on that level where my favorite players were. He had Kevin Durant and Devin Booker acknowledge him. You know what I mean? Like the following night in Phoenix, when they played Phoenix, just to say, yo, bro, man, you hooping, man, respect. You know what I mean? Like respect for your game. So, he obviously still had a good showing through the summer league, and then through preseason, he was getting the respect of his peers. And so that, notwithstanding, the Lakers didn't have any more actual roster spots that they could use to sign him contractually. So they signed Quincy Olivari conversely to a two-way contract. The NBA two-way contract beginning in the 2017-2018 season, the National Basketball Association added two-way contracts between NBA teams and their minor league NBA G League affiliates. Through the 2022-2023 season, each team could offer 2 contracts per season to players with fewer than 4 years of NBA experience. From 2023-2024, 3 such contracts per team are allowed. Unlike the NHL, these contracts are not offered to every aspiring NBA player, but are intended for players who a team would like to keep on retainer without having to sign to a full contract. However, some players drafted during the second round of an NBA draft can be retained by teams under a two-way contract as an alternative signing method for them. Two-way players are typically considered to be the 16th and 17th men and presumably 18th on a roster. The two-way contract system benefits young undrafted players who do not want to play professional basketball overseas and want to play in the NBA, as well as those who believe an organizational investment in them is beneficial towards their development. Some player agents have been concerned about the system because in exchange for guaranteed employment at a higher salary than a typical G League player, two-way players give up the freedom to be called up from the G League by any NBA team, possibly one with intent to sign the player to a 10-day contract, which could eventually lead to a full-time NBA roster spot sooner than with a two-way contract. And I 100% agree. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they should be restricted. A team wants to take a shot on you, but in this case, the Lakers, like, they shouldn't just be allowed to stash a player because it's almost like, yo, if we just throw them a couple bucks, it'll keep any other team from using him in case we need him. And then you keep this kid down in the G League 2-3 seasons past the 4 seasons guaranteed, where you've decided to go in a different direction, and now you fucked up 3 years of this kid's life. You know what I mean? Like playing around with them, and that's really messed up. So there should be some flexibility that allows these players to be looked at by other teams and say, man, if y'all want to drag y'all feet on them, that's on y'all, but I'll take them now and sign them to an actual contract to give them more money so that they can live out their dream a little faster on an accelerated pace. However, some players who have proven themselves during their time under a two-way contract can then be given a full-scale contract for the rest of the season, though they can require removing another player from the team to maintain the maximum of 15 full roster spots. Salary changes. Originally, excluding time spent before and after the G League season, players on two-way contracts have spent up to 45 days per season with their NBA team, with these players being ineligible for the NBA playoffs. During the 2017-2018 season, players earned $75,000 while they were in the G League and roughly up to $204,000 if they spent the maximum 45 days on an NBA roster, increasing yearly up to $92,241 by the 2024-2025 season. It's important to note that because Gilbert said, well, G League contract's only $41,000, which that's probably what it was, back when he was in the league, but it's clearly not. You know what I mean? It's clearly not. It's much more money than that. You know what I mean? Today, still not quite the $7.8 million that Bronny was guaranteed, but it's a lot more than $41,000. However, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, during the subsequent suspension of the 2019-2020 NBA season, the league allowed two-way players to become eligible for the 2020 NBA playoffs within their 2020 NBA bubble as part of the effort to avoid any COVID-19 outbreaks spreading among the players. For the 2020-2021 season, which was shortened to 72 games and paired with a truncated 2020-2021 NBA G League season, the NBA allowed a significant increase in salary for two-way contracts from an initial $81,995 minimum to an overall salary worth up to $449,155. The amount of time allowed with the NBA team also increased from 45 total days to 50 games. Even this restriction was eventually lifted, permitting two-way players to play the entire regular season and the 2021 NBA playoffs. Players going over the initial 50-game cap receive a veteran's minimum salary, which is a great thing. However, it was ultimately revealed to only be for that playoff stretch, as two-way contracts would return to the 50-game barrier the following season, with no playoff appearances whatsoever for them in the process, barring any last-minute promotions to the regular season roster for them. So the NBA was like, no, well, yeah, you know what I mean? We'll require you guys to pay them the vet minimum, but saving the owner some money. Obviously, it's like, now you can convert it back to the two-way after the playoffs end if you want to, you know what I mean, throw them back in that two-way contract mix for next season to, you know, for cap reasons or what have you for these franchises. So, yeah, I don't like that little wrinkle in the two-way contract process, but I wanted to explain that or share that information again so that you could arm yourself with some knowledge and information prior to me sharing that information in the other episode where I spoke about Quincy's two-way contract. I was unaware of the differences between the Exhibit 10 contract. I had no knowledge of the Exhibit 10 contract and the necessity of having to sign one in order to play Summer League. I had no idea what the two-way contract entailed either. So I share that information with you all because I want to use my platform to be, you know, educational in a sense. I appreciate Gilbert for keeping it real. And, you know, also for just, you know, for a change, not trolling about, you know what I mean, the situation and just kind of allowing his true thoughts respectfully, you know what I mean, like to be heard, because what that does, I feel like, is it takes away like the fluff and it keeps people who are ignorant. And ignorant doesn't mean that you're stupid or you're an idiot, or it just means that you don't know, right? So it removes foolery from the space of ignorance for some people who are out here just listening to anything that, whether you're in the independent media space, mainstream media space, whether you're a rock star in the, you know, independent media space, you know, like Gilbert is, it keeps people from looking at what you're saying and taking it as gospel, right? Without actually having information that they can look at and say, nah, bro, like here, this is the real, right? So that we don't just have people misinformed and arguing and so forth. So that's been the basis of this episode. Shout out to Quincy Olivari for, you know what I mean, getting his money. I do think that, again, there's a lot of truth spoken by Gil and a shift in perspective where it's like, yo, man, because Bronny's actually on the team with you and, you know what I mean, like their eyeballs on him and their eyeballs on you as well. You know what I mean? That is 100% true. You know what I mean? That's the truth. That's a fact. And, you know what I mean? Like, shout out to Quincy for just being prepared to rise to the occasion when his number, you know, was and is, you know what I mean, called. So hopefully that brother continues to get better. You know what I mean? Like, hopefully Bronny continues to get better also. I don't wish any ill, you know, on Bronny or, you know, really and truly, I wouldn't say anything even negative about him, except that I'm a sports fan and the nature of sports fans is to call motherfuckers bums when they bums. You know what I mean? But the spotlight of scrutiny put on Bronny is only on Bronny because his dad keeps, or was, you know what I mean? And his reps around him and his handlers and JJ and, you know what I mean? Like Rob and everybody with this, he earned it already. He earned this opportunity. It's like all this kind of bullshit. He's better than most players I'm watching on League Pass tonight. And it's like, we know that's not true. And so when you say things like that, don't be surprised when you're met with like visceral or pushback. You know what I mean? By being like, bro, you can't trick me out of what I'm looking at. I'm looking at him and I don't see what you're telling me is there. And I don't have to be a person that made it to the NBA level playing basketball to understand from a bum. You know what I'm saying? So that's the basis of this episode. Let me know what your opinion is in the comments. You know what I mean? Like, I'd be very interested to hear from you guys, man. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel once again. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Until then, take care of yourselves. Blessings.